essay. Okay. On the essay, there is a way to get 4 points, I think, that everyone should remember, just like have ingrained in their head. Okay. Because the readers grade more difficult than Mr. Barth does. Okay. And so the average score, it's out of 7. The average score is usually somewhere between 2 and 3 points. Okay. So they grade more difficult than I do, right? I went and did like half points and stuff like that. They don't do that. It's either full point or not. So here's how you can get 4 points, which is above average, which can help a lot of students raise their points, especially like if your multiple choice is like a little bit lower, your writing can help you. Okay, so here's how you can do that. Doesn't matter which is a DBQ, FRQ, doesn't matter, right? You start with your intro paragraph, with contextualization. What's contextualization? What else is happening? What's happening during this time? This is 2 to 3 sentences. I think it makes the most sense doing it in the intro paragraph. Like a rubric? Yeah. They won't give you a rubric, but if you look at, if you look at the, I think it might show it up in the practice test booklet. Yeah, they'll have, there's like a bullet point list of things to do. That is the same thing as the rubric. It's just in bullet point form. So if you want to look at that rubric again tonight, look at that bullet points, but also in this little booklet, I put in the rubrics too. So if that's helpful, look at those rubrics again tonight. Okay. So 2 to 3 sentences, that's a point. Okay. Next, how do you end your intro paragraph? Thesis statement. That's a point. The number one thing you need to know for your thesis statement is, does it answer the question? If the question is asking you something like, to what extent is this the cause of the women's liberation movement? You have to say, this is a cause, not a cause, it's kind of a cause. You have to answer the question, no matter what it is. How much was the 13th Amendment a turning point in, right, whatever it is, you have to say, this 13th Amendment is a turning point. You have to answer the question. If you read just that sentence, to answer the question. It would also be great if it answered the question and showed what the body paragraphs will say. Okay. If you can say, like, you know, this is the cause of the women's liberation movement because of blank, blank, and blank, and then those blanks are going to be what your body paragraphs are. That's 2 points. Do you have to do a counter argument in your thesis statement? No. In fact, you don't need it in your thesis statement at all. Even if you do put a counter argument in, you don't technically need it in your thesis. Nice, but it's not required to get that 1 point. The next thing are the body paragraphs. And the body paragraphs are going to go along the same template every time. You have your piece of evidence. Evidence number 1. You describe what it is or describe the document, and then you explain how it connects to the thesis. You're just going to do that over and over again. Describe what it is, explain how it connects to the thesis. So if it's a document, you say, you know, Abraham Lincoln is saying this. Put it in your own words. Don't use a quote. Put in your own words. This is what he's doing. This is what he's saying. This is his main purpose. And then this shows my thesis. You don't say this, but this showed my thesis through this. It's an example of the turning point or a cause or something like that. Yes. Well, think of it. You can think of it like you know, your thesis statement, CER, right? If that's helpful, or you think like CER, you're always going by, you know, or actually CER for each of the pieces of evidence. If that's helpful, you think of it in that way, that's okay too. Then you go to evidence number 2. Describe, explain. Okay. How many documents do you need, or how many pieces of evidence do you need total? 6. Always 6. Okay, always 6. And so if you're going to do 2 body paragraphs, because that makes the most sense for whatever question they're asking, then you do 3 documents or 3 pieces of evidence per paragraph. If it makes more sense to do 3 body paragraphs, then you do 2 pieces of evidence per paragraph. Like 2 body paragraphs. I probably would do 4 paragraphs. Not 4 paragraphs, but 1 paragraph is 2 pieces of evidence, and a paragraph is 4 pieces of evidence. You can do that. But if you get to a point where you're doing like 1 paragraph only has 1 piece of evidence, then they'll I forget the phrase they use for that, unbalanced, like that. And they don't like that. So try to keep it balanced as possible. Okay. Now, if you can describe and explain for 6 pieces of evidence, that's 2 points for GBQ and FRQ. And if you're just like, Mr. Bryce, I just want to know the best and easiest way to get as most points as possible, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're like, okay, I feel like I can challenge myself to do the HAP analysis on 3 of the documents or adding the counter argument, that's great. But honestly, most students don't get it. And sometimes students will try to do that other stuff and it takes away from this. So if you're like, okay, maybe writing's not my strongest thing, I'm going to focus on these 4 points. And that's how I'm going to get the most points I can get. Because the average, I think I said this before, the average of what students get on their writing is somewhere between 2 and 3 points. Yes. So you can put that in, you do that with 3 pieces of evidence, right? So after describe and explain, then you'd be like, the point of view of this author, Abraham Lincoln was a free soiler and blah, 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 right? Nope. So for that extended analysis, if you just repeat what's in the source line, that's not enough. So for historical context, you would say something like, I want to make sure everyone can hear. Let's say the document was written in 1860. Okay, and you could say this document was written during the time where there's debate about slavery that is going to lead to secession. Okay, so instead of just saying it happened in 1860, that's not historical context, but describing what's going on in that time period that maybe gives a better explanation for the document, that's what they're looking for. Or point of view. You can't just say Abraham Lincoln is the author. Well, yeah, everyone can see that because it's in the source line. But if you say Abraham Lincoln was writing this because he was a free soiler, which means he was against the expansion of slavery, that's his point of view. Okay, and see, that's why, like I'm suggesting right now, if you're just looking, what's the basic skeleton I need? Like the extended analysis, that gets into the higher points that can be difficult to get, and frankly, why most students don't get it.
So like, okay, this document is about like 5 years after the previous document came time to find as fast as that count?
Yeah, I think it could because it's connecting to different documents. Yeah.
Do you think, like, if you think you'll have time, is it worth it to try and include the extended analysis?
Yeah, I think so. Like if you took the practice test and you're like, I had plenty of time for both my essays, sure. Yep. Yeah, for short answer. Right, there's like 1, A, B, and C, right, for all of these. So best would be 2 to 3 sentences and trying to use evidence when you can. So think of things like people, events, things that would show up on the study guide. Those are the kind of things you want to make sure you add to your sentences. So it shouldn't be a sentence. It shouldn't be just like an answer with no examples or no details. You need to add something to it. Okay. Was there another question over here? Yeah.
If we do the half answers, how many do we need to do that for?
Yep.
The questions that's like compare like the different whatever the document is like how would you evidence that? Talk about
Yep. So if there is a document where they have like, let's say 2 sources to read, and it's asking you to compare and contrast them. What you would do is you would read them, you'd find what's different about them, and you would use your own words to say this is what's different. Okay. You don't need to use a quote or anything, and you don't need to use outside evidence because they're asking you to compare these 2 documents. So you just use the evidence that they provide you. Yeah, usually they don't like quotes. They want to hear your words. Because if they want to read the quotes, they could just read the document. Yeah. You do not need a summary or a concluding paragraph.
If you're gonna do where would you?
Counterclaim could go in any of the paragraphs. It could be its own paragraph. It just depends on, if you have time, throw it on the end.
Like all the evidence is in counterclaim, you just like have like one short paragraph about it.
You do not have to disprove it. Because the counterclaim is there to show that history is not just black and white, right? They like asking the to what extent questions a lot. It's never all or one thing, right? And so what you're doing by showing the counterclaim is showing that there's gray area and that there's different perspectives maybe about history. Other questions? And for second and fourth hour today, we're going to be talking about DBQ statistics. We're actually going to look at them. Okay. Questions? So multiple choice is how many questions? 55 and how many minutes? 55 minutes. 55 questions, 55 minutes. How many short answers are there? There's 3. So the first question is going to give you, I think it's a primary source. Second question, secondary. That might be switched around. And the third, there's actually the third one, you're going to choose between 2 different questions. One is like an early American history question. One is a later American history question. So you get to choose which one you're going to do. They're all like. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, good question. So the question is, should we plan out our essay beforehand? Here's what I would do for the DBQ. Let's say the question's asking you something like, I don't know, how were Americans affected by the home front? Okay, and there's 7 documents, and I decide, oh, I can see some documents, so political changes, some economic, some social. What I might do first is just like, okay, next to the document 1, I'm just gonna write P for political. And then next one, oh, the next one's social, I'm gonna write an S for that. So that way, I'm kind of planning, okay, here's how many documents I have for each. And then maybe on a page I go like this, PSC, let's see, I have document A and D, this one I have C and E, this one I have B and F, right? Something like that. This just to help me organize, okay, here's what I'm gonna put in this paragraph, here's what I'm gonna put in that one, right? To kind of organize yourself. And then you can say, okay, oh, I remember a piece of outside evidence I'm gonna put here, right? Something like simple like that, I think is an easy way to keep track of what you're doing. Yeah. You should source the documents by doing something like document, something like that. Okay. Everyone hear that? So when you're talking about the documents in the DBQ, putting somewhere saying like document A or in document A or according to Lincoln, and you say something like that. Okay, what? So it could be something like if it is like how the war changed people, maybe you could talk about, well, it didn't change people's view of the government that much, and you just put it in this paragraph at the end somewhere. It's not a very good example, but and you do the same thing for a counter argument. You describe what it is. You explain how it, in this case, disproves the thesis statements. Describe, explain. Describe, explain. Always have that in your mind. You write your essay. Describe, explain. Describe, explain. Okay? It's like rowing a boat. Describe, explain. Describe, explain. Okay? That's how you row. That's my rowing. Hey, we good for now? Okay, I'm gonna